All right, I think we're gonna go to CBAC. Y'all wanna come on up? All right, so item 25 is receive an update from the Citizens Bond Advisory Committee on their progress and potential recommendation regarding a bond election in November 2023. And John Langmore, you're the chair still, right?
Unless you're going to inform me otherwise.
Awesome. No, as long as they're
Your appointee.
Insurrection.
Yeah,
I'll turn it over to you, John, to lead us through this. Thank you.
Yep, please.
I'll start, Judge.
Oh,
Cynthia
okay.
McDonald, County Executive for Transportation and Natural Resources. And we actually have quite a few members. I'm really happy to see them from the CBAC. Back in October of 2022, the Commissioners Court approved the formation of a Citizens Bond Advisory Committee to study the need for a November 2023 bond election that would be for capital projects including parks, open space, roads, drainage, bikeways, and pedestrian ways. So in December, you did a call for applicants. We were very pleased. You got a lot of applicants, and we settled on these members that you see today and a few more.
Can we just have them at least stand up so we can recognize?
Oh,
the
we
other
were going
members of
to.
the
Yeah,
CBAC?
we'll make sure you get to lay eyes and hear their names from each of them. And then they started meeting in late January. Staff has been supporting them through the effort, giving them some information on projects. We started some public meetings this early last week. We're continuing to do some public meetings this week as well, and we hope to have virtual open house up by the end of this week or first thing next week. And now I'm going to turn it over to the chair, John Langmore.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm not going to speak today. They're going to present on our progress. The only thing I did want to do is ask our other committee members that are here. Charles is almost a committee member, but we'll start with Rajiv. Rajiv, you might just introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and Judge Brown. I'm Wendy Scaparrotta. I've also lived in Travis County for about 30 years now. I was appointed by Commissioner Shea, and thank you very much, Commissioner Shea.
Well, and you're really soft pedaling this. Wendy was our Parks program and I don't know, all kinds of things, mistress who did wonderful things in our Parks Department for years. Thank you.
Thanks, Cody.
Thank you.
My name is James Valadez. I've lived in Austin my whole life, Travis County my whole life, and represented Precinct 4.
Excellent.
James, you might be second in line after the mayor for a number of county committees that you are willing to serve on. So thank you, both of you, for all of your work.
Appreciate that.
And so I'm just going to turn it over to our vice chair, Jennifer Bristol, and I'll let the rest of them introduce themselves.
Thank you. Good morning. And I'll just want to say thank you to Judge Brown for your appointment. And thank you, Commissioners, for hearing us today and for allowing us to be part of this advisory team and really dig into what does the county need and for the next bond cycle. So I'll just kind of start off with a little bit of our process and what we've been up to over the past few weeks as we've spent our time together each and every Wednesday, as well as some of our public outreach that we've gone through. So we started off with a presentation to look at what is the capacity, the debt capacity of the county. We were presented several different options, everything from $350 million to $400 million to $450 million, which would leave a nice cushion for any kind of capacity beyond that. We received a really, really in-depth and interesting presentation by Selena Munoz over equity and how do we apply those principles to make sure that we are really absorbing those and applying those across each one of these projects. As we looked at the infrastructure, we were looking at what are the safety needs, the compatibility with Travis County long-range plans, the adjacency to parks and libraries and routes to schools, and then where do they fit within the economically disadvantaged census tracts? And are there already funds being applied to that project as well? So that was more for the roads and the infrastructure side, and then on the park evaluation. On the criteria, we looked at the master plan, the shovel readiness of each project, expanding the size and the public use of existing facilities, and then also looking at where do these fit, again, within the community so that they're equitable across each one of the precincts. In addition, we're also looking at the acquisition of conservation lands, and again, how do those impact us and affect us for the future? We started kind of looking at the evaluation and ranking each one of those within there, and then but we haven't really fully gotten to 100% of the ranking because we wanted to hear from the citizens through the public meetings and as well as listening to them for the emails that they've sent in. Staff has been doing a wonderful job with keeping us each week apprised of what citizens' communications there are through email. And then the meetings are always open to the public for people to come and offer their opinions and, what are they interested in seeing on this bond cycle as well. We have had 3 of the 4 public meetings. I will go ahead and say they have been lightly attended, unfortunately, and we are considering things of how to improve that, both for the future, but also how do we make sure that we're really and truly reaching the public to get their input on this before presenting it and bringing it back to you. Once we've kind of gone through this process, we will again come back and review things once we've heard from the citizens and really kind of boiling it down, and hopefully present to y'all a package that you will like as much as we do and be excited about, and then hopefully as it goes up for consideration to the voters, and hopefully they'll be interested in it as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Larry Wallace Jr., appointed by Commissioner Civilian. Real quick, you already heard here about the variables that we try to include in here for equity, and so I'm kind of going to speak on the roads aspect of it. There was already a rack and stack based off of Campo, TxDOT, RMA's kind of, situation. Does it meet this criteria? Does it meet that criteria? And really based off of your input and desire to have a more regional approach and equity included into those projects, we started looking at the variables as well as what about roads or, schools that are not necessarily right off of a road to that project, but in an area that may be a quarter of a mile, half a mile, within 2 miles of an impact. We looked at also not just congestion, but also the types of accidents that are happening, flights, star flights, deaths, situations like that. So there's more of a holistic understanding of what's happening with the different roads. We also then considered where the status was on additional funding for some of these roads. Did it go into a city? Did it go into another county? Was it part of TxDOT? What aspects of funding was already allocated? Was it something that's been promised time over time and all the things just wasn't there for us to say, yes, we need to commit county funds to it as well. So that kind of helped reshuffle a couple of the projects, not all of them. But you'll see that in our recommendation, that more variable inclusion for a holistic understanding of the recommendation, especially since there's 15 of them here. And I think with what we're talking about allocating towards projects, we'll probably only get to maybe about 10, 13, depending upon some additional racking and stacking in order of merit list that we come up with this. But really, I think across the board, from each different representation of the precinct, everybody was really focusing on what's not being told just through the regular meets or doesn't meet from the Campo, RMA, TxDOT, and even at the county level of the normal practice of analyzing roads and projects.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Gary Merritt. I was appointed by Commissioner Shea, and I'll talk briefly about the parks, open space, and greenways projects that we've looked at so far, and at some of the evaluation criteria that we've taken into consideration. There are some really well-developed projects that we've been fortunate to be able to consider when we've looked actually physically on the ground and then heard from people about what's important to them in their area. There are consideration of up to $200 million for to acquire additional parkland and open space, and that's in response to rapid increase in property values in Travis County, as well as land fragmentation, and we're trying to understand more fully the impacts of land fragmentation relative to the valuation and values of open space, and adding to the great park system that the county has now. There are tremendous need in roads as well, and you all have heard this before, and so we've evaluated extensively road projects, and then park improvements and greenway construction, and so that total number, as you would know, exceeds, we think, that our how much is available or how much we want to recommend, and so our next step is to think about how much to put in each one of those buckets: park, open space acquisition, roads and drainage, and park improvements and greenway construction, and then divide and prioritize projects within those buckets. Under the parks and greenways criteria, you've heard Jennifer say that some of our evaluation criteria is this project included in the county master parks plan? Is it a shovel-ready project or a priority alternate project? And then how does this project relate to public use, either expanding or an existing public facility or providing leverage or protection for a public facility? We've gotten some understanding about the relationship of parkland acquisition, fee simple acquisition, and conservation easements, and the county has made tremendous investment in both of those over several funding cycles, and thinking about how this next funding cycle could support and protect those investments. We have been thinking about the effect of this capital investments on the county's ongoing M&A budget, and thinking about things like replacing some natural grass playing fields with synthetic fields will allow more public use, because those fields can be used longer through the day and longer in the season, as well as have the effect of having lower maintenance costs. We have looked at the connectivity of projects, whether it's how a park relates to a greenway or connecting, or another city project, or just like the way a road might be partially in Travis County, partially in the city and back into the county or another city, well, a park or a greenway can have the same characteristics. And so how does the county investment connect with and support other investment that's being made with public funds? And then some other considerations, like for the transportation projects, for the road projects, I'm thinking about the impact of things like shared use paths along those roads. So enhanced, widened sidewalks that provide something like a park-like atmosphere. And so does that investment then support the public parks investment as well, and how do those tie together? So we still have a lot of work. We've done a lot of work. We have a lot more ahead of us. But I'll just close by saying that we've been really well supported and well staffed by the Transportation Natural Resources staff and our chairperson and all of the committee. We're very engaged, and we're very appreciative of this opportunity to serve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know y'all put a lot into this. Really appreciate all that you're doing. Commissioner, are we ready for questions from commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Gomez, do you have any questions or feedback?
No, I appreciate the report, and I think the work is progressing well. Sounds like it, and so keep up the good work.
Thanks, Commissioner Shea.
I just want to say we have a rock star group of people who volunteer their time to go through this process. We fought over some of you who would get to appoint whom. And also we're entering a really profound time in history where there are so many impacts to local communities, so many of them economic, so many of them around equity. So I'm really thrilled that was a part of your lens as well in looking at these bond items. And then also climate. The impacts of climate are going to be enormous. And they have impacted the cost, the money, the public money that we're spending on projects. And there's just an important Supreme Court ruling that allows local jurisdictions to proceed with lawsuits around climate damages. And so we've been tracking those costs with our planning and budget staff. But it's just really important work you're doing, and it will have really long-term effects and benefits for our community. So I'm deeply appreciative. Thank you for your time, because I know many of you are on many other bodies that we've appointed you to. Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for their participation, that we would have staff that would come back, that we would have people who have lived in the community for 20, 30, 40 years, who just want to see good things happen as we grow into a major city. We are not an old college town anymore. We are a major city. Parts of the city have been underdeveloped in an inequitable way, and a lot of those parts of the county are now the first places where people who are coming in are looking at. So health and safety is going to be important. Where are our low water crossings? Where are our communities without two ways in and out? Evacuation routes. If we've got children at schools, how do we get to them? How do we get them out of there? We want to think of what we do in terms of health and safety. How do we solve problems if we know that we've had fatalities and accidents because of the lack of development of a road system? What do we do about that? Where are there disconnected parts of infrastructure? It takes our neighborhoods and the people who live in them to tell us those things, what should be a priority. So we appreciate all of the work that you're doing, and we'll take a good hard look at everything that you give to us, because we know where it's coming from, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. I know if Commissioner Howard were here, she would also say thanks so much. I know how happy she is with this, and so thanks, John, for chairing, and everybody for being here today, and all the work that you're putting into it. And Cynthia, thanks for making this all. I know we truncated the normal timeline, but how's it look in terms of timeline?
I will admit, again, I was very concerned about the timeline with regard to this bond cycle. But I will say that the folks that are on the committee are very, very engaged folks. They have such a great background. So I think, the learning curve was very short for them. Most of them have already been through similar processes, and so I think it made it a lot easier. They're very thoughtful in their questions. They have a lot of resources behind them that they bring to the discussion on a weekly basis. They've been very patient with us getting them information, but they also have really good ideas about how they want to slice and dice some of the data to give them, some more informed decision-making process. And so I really am very impressed with this particular group. This is like my third or fourth bond cycle, and I will say this one has probably been the most efficient in their discussions. There's not a lot of, tug of war, if you will, that we see quite often. And so this is a really, really good group of folks that you have. I will say that we have targeted the end of May, I believe, on the current schedule for the final discussion on their recommendations. They want to come back to the court the first week in June. that will give the court some time to consider that, but that also still gives the public an opportunity to respond to those recommendations and give some additional feedback if there are any comments that aren't captured in this first go-around with the public meetings. So there's still plenty of time for public feedback before you all make your final decision on whether or not there is going to be a bond election and what those projects are going to be if there is one.
And the good news is we all know that if there's a problem in Travis County, John Langmore has a picture of it somewhere. So,
Yeah, somewhere.
I also want to thank the public folks. You know, I mean, the ones that have come out have been very well informed. I mean, just last night, I heard from an engineer who gave us some creative ideas of how to do design and you know, how to interact with our engineering staff. And so there's very, very well-informed folks that do show up. I do hope that, you know, people will get more engaged in this process. It is important part of, you know, what we deliver to the community. And I think everybody, you know, if you can, we'll have virtual open houses. There is a website out there, the CBAC 2023 website. You can also email there. Please come to a public meeting. We're here every Wednesday from 6 to 8. You know, any means, and folks, if you can get the word out to the public as well, we'd really appreciate a lot more feedback.
I might just quickly in closing, while we have the chance, and we'll be back to present our final recommendation when I can say this more completely, but I think the number of committee members that are here is indicative of how seriously they take their work. And I would also, you know, in return, compliment TNR staff for a lot of great support of our efforts. And, you know, I'm sure they dread every time a CBAC is formed. But you wouldn't know it based on how supportive they've been. So greatly appreciative of everyone on the committee and everyone at staff that's worked on this, and of course y'all's support as well.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Yep, thank you all, appreciate your support.
Let us know if we can help with
you.
anything. All right, up next is we're going to take up item 13, the bank depository